This is the Haulin Assets podcast where we show you how to start and run your own trucking company. Ever wanted to go out on your own? Follow Chris as he goes through the highs and lows of running on his own authority. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Haulin Assets podcast. This is episode number 75. Today we're going over March financials. I am Craig, your host, and over there he is...
Chris.
Chris, how's it going?
It's going well. How about you?
Not too bad. Any tales from the road this week, Chris?
All I did from the road was drive a trailer about 50 miles south, and that's all I've done driving this week. So not a whole lot of tales from the road. Hard to make
yourself. Pace yourself, Chris.
It's
okay?
rough. 50 miles. Yeah, it almost took me an hour.
So yeah, it was a rough week for you.
It's been a light driving week, that is for sure.
Well, today, Chris, we're going over, like I said, the March financials, and so there may be some things that we want to talk about before we get to our main topic, though. So why don't you tell me a little bit? You came with a note about the CVSA, and I read that, and I was tempted to type it into Google to figure it out, but why don't you tell me, what is the CVSA?
The CVSA stands for Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance. It's basically the conglomerate that does most of the training for the enforcement agencies out there that do like roadside inspections, and they have to, for a violation to go from a ticket onto the person's FMCSA record, the company's record, it has to be conducted by somebody who's CVSA certified.
The what has to be conducted?
Like a roadside inspection.
The inspection. Okay.
Yeah, it has to be done by a CVSA certified inspector.
And you say your inspection is coming up.
Well, no, it's not my inspection. It's the CVSA every year organizes a nationwide road check, is what they call it. And they do it over a certain, typically a weekend or in the middle of the week over a 3 to 4 day period. And they do a ton of inspections, and it's all across the country. So like, the Utah inspection officers all do stuff in Utah, and inspectors in every state are doing things. They just pull in a ton of trucks and do roadside inspection.
And so this is a time when everybody's a little more on guard on the road.
A lot more on guard. Or and we'll talk about this in just a second, or they just say, I'm not going to drive during that period.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of guys will stay off the road during that period.
And so this is a defined date then?
Yeah, they tell you when it's going to happen, so it's not a surprise. And they even tell you typically what they're going to be looking for, and that changes every year. Like last year, I think they were going to focus on brakes and suspension systems, if I remember right. This year, they are going to be looking at lights and hours of service.
Oh, interesting. So
that's going to be their focus.
You got to have that log ready to show.
Make sure your logs are clean and your lights are all in working order.
Okay, well, duly noted. I'll make sure before I take. Okay, I don't.
Yeah,
have a truck.
It's kind of one of those things. Lights, especially, it's one of the easiest things to fix. It's one of the easiest things to tell a light's either working or it's not.
But it's also one of the easiest things to miss, right? Because you can't necessarily see all of your lights all the time. You got to have somebody helping you check your bag.
You don't.
Oh, well, no, you do.
Actually,
I mean, you can do it on your own.
Trucks have a system where most trucks, you push a button and it goes through a test cycle. So as you're walking around, you can check all your lights. So it's easy to check. It's just a matter of actually doing it and paying attention and making sure all the lights are working. And another thing that's really interesting with lights and owner operators, owner operators take a lot of pride in their trucks.
Sure.
And so you know what they do?
What?
They put a lot of chrome on them.
and they put a ton of running lights.
Yeah, so if you see a Christmas tree driving down the freeway, you know it's an owner operator that owns that truck. And it looks really cool, but you know what the problem with it is?
What? Well, now you have...
There's a minimum number of lights that you have to have.
Oh, okay.
If you have more than that, those lights still have to be functioning. So for every additional light you have on it, it still has to work. And so it may be an extra light that you don't really need, but if it's not working, you can get a ticket for it.
So don't go over the minimum light allowance or requirement? Is that the lesson here?
To each his own.
Yeah.
But if you're really trying to... if you're an owner operator and you've got good control of it and you can fix it and you can work on it, absolutely do what you want. But if you are an owner operator and then all of a sudden you transition to a driver driving that truck, or trying to do that for a truck that is a driver's truck and not your own truck, I wouldn't do that because nobody's going to pay as much attention to that kind of thing as you're going to.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Owner operators and their sweet rides.
And their sweet rides. Yeah. Be careful with those lights.
Okay. So, gosh, Chris, I'm trying to think if I have any other questions on that. I assume you're going to be sending your trucks out on the road during this time.
Yeah, I have
you stay on top of things, right?
Yeah, I have no intention of skipping it for a couple of reasons. One, before you go out, before this week, just have a mechanic look over the truck. You know, they'll usually charge you about $50 to do essentially the same kind of inspection a DOT officer would do. Have them go look at it, make sure your hours of service are good, and don't be afraid to get pulled into a port. And one of the other benefits of going out during this week is a lot of people stop. And so guess what? I remember the first year that this happened when I was driving, I got the best rate during that week than I had in a long time because a lot of guys just say, hey, I'm not going to drive. And so, you know, it's a function of supply and demand. And there's a bigger demand for trucks than there is a supply during that period, because even if 10% of the drivers say, hey, I'm not going to go out, and you have a 10% reduction, that creates a constraint in the freight industry and is good for those guys who will go out. You'll typically get paid a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So I'll be very interested, I guess, to hear in June about May's numbers, right? You said it was in May.
Yeah, it happened. It's the 4th through the 6th of May this year.
Okay. So that'll be a good time. I guess, fine, we'll let our listeners in on the secret. Get out and drive during those days. This is your time to shine.
Yeah,
right?
Don't be afraid to not go in. And then, you know, if you're doing things right and you're good safety-wise, the other benefit that comes out of it, you get inspected and you get a good inspection report, and that's beneficial to your company's CSA scores.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. So do you, I assume you make some special effort in the days leading up to this to make sure that the trucks are in tip-top shape. Probably not just for the things that they said they're going to highlight, but for everything else, right?
Everything else, then also your hours of service, you know, that 8-day period before the 4th of May, so roughly starting around the 26th of April or so, just make sure your hours of service are clean. So that if you get pulled in on the 4th, those 8 days that the inspectors are going to get a look at are looking good.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that
they
all
should
makes
always
sense.
Look good, but
obviously, you're
pay
run
extra.
a tight ship, right, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So, do you have anything else on this topic, or should we talk about some numbers?
Let's talk the numbers.
All right.
What we're all here for.
That's right.
I feel like we need a drum roll this time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's good.
Oh. Can I tell you a secret, Chris?
Please.
I don't look at the numbers until we record. I'm looking at the intro. I'm looking at the what do we call it? The impact tip at the end of the episode, just to make sure I know what's coming up.
So we get an authentic reaction.
I literally have no idea. I have blocked myself from looking at the numbers here. So I don't have a drum roll for you, but I'm ready. All right, hit me.
So we ran 24,488 miles, which is a record. Everything this month is basically a record.
Now, this month, so just to set this up again, you've got 3 trucks now, but still 2 drivers, or you're down to 1?
Well, we are. So for the month of March, we had 2 drivers the whole time. Plus, on truck number 3, I took 1 load. So we had 1 load on the 3rd truck, and then 2 trucks running full time. Okay.
All right. So I just wanted to make sure we had that set up, but that's still a record, 24,000 miles. Yep. All right. What's up next? How much of that was Deadhead?
It was 1,741 miles, which is 7.1%. And that's actually higher than we've had for quite a while.
Right. You're shooting for 5, right?
We'd like 5. Anything under 10 is typically acceptable, but we've been closer to 5 and even a little lower than 5. I think for the last, I should have looked this up, but for the last 4 or 5, maybe even 6 months. Okay. We've been closer to that 5% number. And the reason we got the higher than normal rate or deadhead miles this time is because we've been hauling a lot of potatoes. And we have to go up. It's about a 200-mile deadhead to go pick the potatoes up from Salt Lake. And then, we'll pick them up in Idaho.
I was going to say, you go up to Pocatello or something like that.
Yeah, Pocatello, Rigby, that area of Idaho. And then we'll take them to North Carolina or Georgia or somewhere. So it ends up being a really long run, but there's still a 10% roughly deadhead to get up there.
Right. But
they're good paying loads, so it's worth it.
According to your need for a drum roll, I'm going to guess that this was all worth it, right? So what was total revenue for the month of March?
$69,039.09.
$69,000.
$69,000, which is incredible.
That's not just a record. That blows your other records out of the water.
I think last month, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I can't remember. We were closer to 30,000.
Okay,
and
that was pretty good. That was a good month.
It was a good month, and we had, I think, 2.5. One truck for the whole month, and the second truck for maybe half the month. We may have been closer to 35. It was somewhere, I think, between 30 and 35,000. So yeah, it was really good. Rates were as good as I have ever seen them on the spot market.
What did you end up with as far as your rate per mile?
$2.81 a mile.
Okay, so hang on. Let me see if I remember this correctly. Anything approaching 2 was good. I think 180 was your absolute basement when you I need to get 180 when you're running one truck.
Yep.
And your all-in rate was 281?
It was.
So
that
how
includes
did you
Deadhead miles. So
how did you manage that?
I think there were actually quite a few factors that contributed that. Probably the biggest one is really it's just the market. The market right now is really good. There's a much bigger demand for trucks than there are out on the road. And I think a lot of that is because the economy is getting better. Inventories are starting to need to be replenished. And so there's just a big demand for freight. Then on top of that, there's a driver shortage. It's getting as hard as I think I've ever seen it to hire drivers. And so I think trucking companies probably have the ability to put more trucks on the road. They've got more trucks, but there's just, you're having a hard time finding drivers that will go in there. And so that really bodes well for the owner operator, because the bigger trucking companies are short, the freight still needs to be hauled, and it gets easier and easier for small trucking companies to pick up additional freight and make really good money.
So for the average person listening to this podcast, thinking about getting into the owner operator gig, or they've been doing it for a little while, this is great news. For you, you're in a different stage where you're buying trucks, you're hiring drivers. This is a rough time for you.
It's getting harder, yeah.
Despite the the sweet profits,
yep,
sweet smell of money, Chris.
It is. We're having a hard time finding drivers.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, fine. Twist my arm.
You gonna come drive?
Oh boy, I can think of worse ideas. I can, but not many. Okay, so we had a rate per mile of 281, and that brings in a profit of what?
We netted $20,350.74.
$20,000.
Yeah, so that was
for a month of Haulin Assets. That is not bad. So
not bad at all.
This is, in my mind, this is an excellent illustration of kind of what you've been talking about for a while. Increasing the number of trucks. It's going to increase the stress, the organizational needs, but the upside is there, right? Now, and this is an amazing month as far as the rates and whatnot, but this is not even 2.5. It's like 2.25 trucks out on the road, and you still managed the profits that you did.
Yeah,
right?
and on top of that, we Nate and I started paying ourselves a little bit of money outside of the driver wages.
Nate just being the partner that you brought on.
For the time that we're putting into running the business. Yeah. So it's an admin expense. So you add that factor on top of an additional expense that we haven't had before, and to still realize that kind of a profit, it is a good month. Yeah,
I'll say. So we've got those numbers then, a profit of just over $20,000. Was this so high in part because nothing cut into that? Did you have any repairs, maintenance, things that that we normally see cutting into those monthly profits?
So we did. The first one that I just mentioned, that Nate and I started paying ourselves a little bit of money, that cut into it. But then we had what I would call kind of a typical set of repair expenses. It was a little over $4,000. We had to replace a fridge. We had to do some repairs on the DPF system on truck number 1. There were some expenses associated with getting truck number 3 all set up, installing the ELD stuff and a few other things. And then there was just kind of a bunch of other little tick-tacky repairs that we had to do. So, and that totaled up to about $4,000, which for 2 trucks is, a pretty normal month,
Right.
$2,000 in repairs per truck in a month. That's not low.
But hey, Chris, you've got the CVSA Roadchecks coming up, and you have 98 running lights per truck that you've got to worry about.
Yeah,
Is that right?
Maybe we'll have more expenses next month getting that ready to go.
That's right. Once your Christmas tree is on the road. So, okay, well that's really cool. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that rates aren't going to be this amazing all the time. And so this is the kind of thing that we talk about ad nauseum. I'm sure people are tired of it if they listen to us enough, but I'm going to say it again. It's a good month. Save your money. Be smart. Know that, if you were able to take advantage of these rates in March, like Chris was, then now's a good time to just put some of that money away and be ready for when rates aren't so great.
Yeah.
Right.
And probably as important or more important than putting money away is just, don't go out and say, okay, hey, I'm making this much money. I'm going to go buy my new pickup truck that I'm going to now have a payment for the next 5 years, and because I guarantee in a 5-year period, you're going to run into times when things are a little bit more lean. So, just don't think that a month like this, or even I think it's going to be like this for a year. I wouldn't be surprised if the rest of this year, the rates are really, really good. Just don't think that that's the norm, and don't straddle yourself with debts or payments that are going to be long-term, because you're going to get yourself into trouble.
Yeah.
It may not happen this year. It may not happen next year, but 2 or 3 years down the road, you could really see yourself in a tight spot.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, is there anything else from the numbers that we need to get into, Chris? As far as how this happened or lessons that you're taking, anything like that? Any final thoughts on the numbers?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. Feel like we're pretty good then. So let's get to our impact tip. And like I said, I did read ahead on this one. I like this impact tip a lot. Why don't you hit me with the 1-sentence summary?
Can you even call this a sentence? Always follow through.
That is
3 words,
indeed,
that's
that is
it.
a sentence, Chris.
It's got a subject and whatever else. I can't even remember from grade school what the structures of a sentence is.
Yeah, that's why you've got me
you're
Chris.
here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Absolutely. That is indeed.
I'm
a
glad
sentence.
you've settled the debate that this is a good sentence.
Always follow
It's
through.
Stamped by Craig.
Well, that's my job. So always follow through. Now this one is it feels self-explanatory. Always follow through. Essentially, in my mind, that means do what you say you're going to do, right?
And that's really what it boils down to. Yeah. Especially when you make a commitment to do something, especially when you say, hey, I'm going to do this at a certain time, or I'm going to meet with somebody, really stick to it. Many people, especially people who are successful, who are really the people you want to be doing work for, they value their time as much or more than just about anything else out there. So the last thing you want to do is say you're going to do something and then end up wasting somebody's time.
Yeah, absolutely. And this goes beyond or like adjacent to the business stuff. This is a personal life philosophy that should be adhered to.
Absolutely.
Right? As I was thinking about this, you sent this over, and I was thinking, gosh, what are my examples from my professional life of me or somebody else doing or not doing what they were going to say? All I could think about was friends that I've had or almost had in my personal life through the years, and how the ones who are the ones who you're able to make a connection with and you're able to keep around for a long period of time, these are the people who are there, who make commitments and stick with them, say, yeah, sure, I'll come help you move or clean your garage or, whatever, and who actually show up.
Yeah.
And so this is the type of thing that we can all recognize no matter what our professional situation. We see this with our family and friends constantly. Those relationships that you value the most are the ones where people do this. They follow through. They do what they say they're going to do when they said they were going to do it. But that because it's so recognizable, I feel like it's easy to take that into a professional business environment, right?
Yeah. As important as that is in your personal life, you think about the friendships that you've had for a long period of time that have lasted a long time. They're not the kind of people that hey, we make plans, let's do something together next week on Friday. And then, Friday comes along an hour before you're supposed to meet up. They call and say, hey, we're backing out. The friends that are constantly doing that kind of thing, you typically don't maintain a good long relationship with them, right? Because they keep burning bridges.
Yeah, at least not a close one.
Yeah, and the same thing happens with business. If you want to be successful in business, you've got to establish that long-term relationship. You've got to show somebody that you're there for them, that you're committed, that you're gonna go a little bit above and beyond, even if something happens bad on your end. You're going to figure out how to work through it and not let it affect them on their end. And when you develop that, you develop trust, and that's what ultimately helps drive the business. And I think that's one of the reasons we're starting to see even more success in Haulin Assets now that we've been doing this for 2 years, is we've established some pretty good relationships with brokers who see that we follow through with our commitments. We have good drivers who make their appointments and do things right. And so now they're trusting us with their most important freight, which is typically the best paying freight, the jobs that they don't want to lose. And we get to benefit in that too, because we get higher rates. They're willing to pay us a little bit more because they know we're going to do a really good job for them. A lot of the loads that we've done over the last few months, probably about 25% of them are from one broker that we're just getting really, really good rates through because we've worked with them for a while and they trust us.
So this is the fruition of something that you talked about early on in the podcast. And I mean, first 5 or 10 episodes early, where you were talking about it takes time to cultivate relationships, whether it's with brokers or directly with the shippers. It takes time to do that. And so you were telling me about how, I am going to make sure that I'm on the ball every load, every single time, not because it's going to pay off this month or next month in the way that you're talking about now, but because it's going to pay off in a year or 2 years or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it takes time to establish that track record. It just doesn't happen overnight. You can't haul one load and deliver one load on time and expect somebody to trust that you're going to do that every time. When they've seen you've done that, time after time after time after time, that's when you establish that trust and they know, hey, these guys are going to do a good job for me no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, makes a lot of sense. I think you've wrapped it up really nicely. Unless you have anything else you want to add on the always follow through impact tip. I got to make sure I got the sentence just right.
I think that's it. It's an important thing to do, and I think the next impact tip is going to be kind of a little bit of a extension to this one.
Okay, so just kind of tying them together then.
Yep.
Okay. Well, very nice. Chris, let's go ahead and call it for today then. But I do want to remind everybody, as I failed to do at the very beginning, to go to HaulinAssetsLLC.com and check out the full show notes there. Make your comments. We love hearing from the listeners there. Go to Facebook, find us on Facebook. And Chris, this is our second filmed episode that's going on YouTube. So, and we're
growing up.
And there's more that's going on YouTube as well. It's not just these episodes. There's other stuff that you're going to be able to find there. So go subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's stuff there for you to watch now, and there's going to be a lot more stuff for you to watch as it goes, right? Fair?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I hope people will go check us out in all of these places. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us. And if you really like what we do, if you find these episodes valuable, entertaining, none or all of the above, then go and leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And also, just share us around, whatever your colleagues, your buddies who are also out on the road, hopefully they would find us valuable as well. So that'd be a great compliment if you shared us around a little bit.
Absolutely. We appreciate it when you share the good word.
Yep. Well, I don't know. Ooh, all right. We're getting into some hot water now, Chris. We better cut and run. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next time.
See ya.